All right. Lab 5 is about developmental biology, specifically the development of sea urchins. And I want us to start with a bit of a look at prepared slides just to get everybody ready for what's to come. Now, what you're looking at is an immature egg, and this happens to be a starfish, but the early stages of development are very similar for pretty much all echinoderms, certainly all the ones we need to concern ourselves with. And you're looking at a single egg. I mean, you can see the big nucleus in the middle. And again, that's an egg that's not quite mature, and it's also not been fertilized. When they look mature, they tend to look more like this. So that's a mature egg. A lot of the graininess in there is yolk. And we'll see the fertilization reaction happening live in a little bit. But when the egg is fertilized, it, of course, divides into 2, divides into 4, divides into 8. Let me see what we can see here. Okay. Yeah, that right there. That's probably an 8 cell. It's a little tricky to count them because some of the cells are behind the others. But if we go up here, yeah, that is about what a 16 cell embryo would look like. I think that's 16. Again, it can be tricky to count because you can't focus on them all at once. But I've got a PhD, so I'm going to say that that is a 16 cell embryo. Now, the cells keep dividing and keep dividing. And okay, what have we got right there? Okay, that is, I'm going to guess that's about a 64. And when you have an embryo like this that's basically a solid ball of cells, the technical name for it is a morula. That is Latin for little mulberry. And in the event you don't know, a mulberry is a fruit that is actually a cluster of small fruits, like a blackberry or a raspberry. So this reminded somebody of a mulberry because it looks like it's made up of little fruits. Okay, you figure it out. What then happens is, there we go. Here's an even later one. I'm guessing that might be 128 or so cells. I'm not entirely sure. But if you focus up and down as I'm doing, you can see it's hollowing out in the middle. There's an open space inside. And when it does that, when the cells begin moving to the outside, we can start calling this a blastula. So this, I'm pretty sure, is an early blastula. And here we go. Yeah, right there. We've got, I'd say, late blastula beginning to shade into early gastrula, because cells from the outside of that ball are beginning to wander in. At about your 12 o'clock, and again at about your 5, you can see just little clumps of red such and such. That's probably the cells that are going to form the mesoderm. They're a cell population called mesenchyme, which is Greek for middle stuff. And so that's a late blastula beginning to move into gastrula stage. And oh, by the way, we're stepping back a little bit, but here's a very nice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to say that's probably about a 16 cell over there on the right with that late blastula, early gastrula on the left. The colors, by the way, don't mean anything. They've just stained different batches of embryos, different colors, and then mixed them. The colors aren't really significant. So if I scoot around a little more, okay, apropos of nothing, that looks like it's maybe a 4 cell. And okay, there's another late blastula and maybe early gastrula, because I can convince myself that I can see just a few little cells down at about your 6. Sorry. Down at about the 6 o'clock position that are beginning to migrate in. So this is the beginning of gastrulation, and let's look for a later one. If here's a good one. Okay, that's a later gastrula, and you can see that dent at about your 10 o'clock that's starting to push its way inwards. That dent, if you remember, is going to form the gut. And in deuterostomes, the dent itself is going to become the anus, and the mouth is going to break through later. And I'm going to try to find a later gastrula. Some of the things on this slide are kind of glommed together, but let's see. I had some good ones around here somewhere. Okay, that's a blastula right there. I'm not seeing any cells wandering in, so that's probably not a gastrula at all yet. But you can still see it's hollow. And here, blastula. Here, gastrula. Here we go. Okay, here's 2. Now here, as I focus up and down, I'm kind of focused on the outside of the yellow one. And then as I move the plane of focus, there's the outside. And as I shift the plane of focus, I can start there. There you can clearly see that dent. The blue one to the right is at very much the same stage. It looks like somebody took a finger and pushed their way in. And that's gastrulation. That push in is going to become the gut. The dent where it began will be the anus, and the mouth will break through later. And let me see if I can find an even later stage than that. Okay, there's kind of a mix of earlier and middle stages, and then there's kind of a mess in the middle. So yeah, I think that one there, the gut may have broken through, and the whole thing is beginning to change shape into a larval type that in starfish is called a bipinnaria. So that's one where not only do we have the gut forming and complete or nearly complete, but this is about the stage where the critter is going to break out of the fertilization membrane and start swimming around on its own and start feeding. Now, if we look at sea urchins, which is on this next slide, the gastrula develops not into a bipinnaria type larva. There we go. It develops into a larval type called a pluteus. And this is one. And it's a little bit bent, but it's got this kind of conical shape with arms. And let me see. Actually, that might be, yeah, that's two of them stuck together. That's a little bit tough to figure out. Let me move around a little more. Okay, there we go, I guess. Yeah, that's an early Pluteus. I'll focus up and down, and you can see there's a pair of arms sticking out. Those darker colored nuclei that you're seeing are ciliary bands. That's where the cilia are that enable this thing to swim. The arms are actually supported by very fine internal skeletal rods. And the round thing right there in the middle is the gut. The mouth is up at about your 1 o'clock, and down below it, at the base of the field of view right here, right there in the center, that's the remainder of the gut. So we've got a complete gut here. This thing, if it were alive, would be perfectly able to swim. You can see they're darker than the rest. Those densely packed red dots, that's the ciliary bands. And you can see a pair of arms that would direct food towards the mouth. I'll try to find one more, and then we'll take a quick break. Okay, and there's one seen from the side. And again, you can see the two long arms. The mouth is kind of up on that extension that's beneath the arms, and then that big central space in the middle is the stomach. That's the larval gut, and that's where sea urchins come from. And let me see, what we got a few more. Yeah, there we've got some. I'm not sure why it looks like there's a double gut in there. I'm not sure if that's normal or not. And yeah, okay, that's that two stuck together. Okay, and there's the one we were just looking at. So that's what Pluteus larvae of a starfish look like. And if the gods are kind, we're actually going to try to raise some starfish embryos to the Pluteus stage. Now, I'm going to stop recording right now and get a few things ready, and then I'll demonstrate fertilization.